Hello, snacks, glorious snacks. Thank you for stopping by once again. You're an absolute perfect little peach for coming to read some stories with me today. It's all a bunch of somewhat conclusive stories with their updates today, including this one that began back in 2022 and has only been updated at the end of this month. It was revealed that my dad has a secret other family and now there is drama. So this story sort of ended on a cliffhanger because all that it ended with was everyone finding out, not exactly the repercussions to that. So here's how things started. The story is that my dad had a child with another woman shortly after he married my mom, but before I was born. My brother, that I didn't know about, is 32. I'm 28 female, and my younger brothers are 26 and 24. My dad gave the other woman money over the years, and her and my brother knew my dad was married and had a family, but none of us knew about them. The only reason my brother, 32 male, revealed the secret is because his son needs a bone marrow transplant, and they are looking for a match, and anyone with a blood relation is the best chance for one. Understandably, my mom feels betrayed, obviously, and I doubt their marriage will survive, but I hate all the drama and gossiping that is happening in my family. I hate drama in general, and this is like my worst nightmare. I mean, what a stand-up guy. Getting married to the love of your life and thinking, no, you know what? I want 2 of these. So you decide to treat your spouses like you're playing The Sims. But now, what's your thoughts on the other mother and son in this situation? Because they knew. That side of the family knew this had all happened. Are they equally guilty by omission in that sort of context? I suppose maybe they were forced to keep the peace because otherwise, Daddy Dearest wouldn't be sending them any money anymore, though I feel that could be argued because, well, depending where you live, I'm sure legally he had some sort of parental and financial responsibility, at least in child support, you know? So what is the dad's reasoning behind all this? Well, if someone asks if the dad got tested himself to, does he at least have enough of a spine to try and care about his other family? Opie informs us that yes, Dad actually did get tested when the nephew first got diagnosed. Dad says that the past is the past and it was a one-time indiscretion, but none of us believe him. To which, although that is kind of valid, what can you do about it now? He can't control Xeon sleeping with someone and getting them pregnant. But while it's in the past for him, as this comment nicely puts it, it's his past, but your mother and the rest of your family's present. Like, ooh, I like that. It's like slapping the dad right in the face, but also with some sound reasoning at the same time. I think that's a very good life lesson to live by when it comes to keeping secrets from anyone, especially if you are scared and don't want to hurt them. It's best to consider if maybe, is it possible that withholding that information might actually make things worse for everyone else around you but you? Kind of makes you trying to move on from it rather selfish, doesn't it? But okay, how exactly did the brother even get in touch in the first place? As this comment here likes to pry about, well, Opie apparently responded that the brother hired a private investigator. He contacted us against my dad's will. Dad had told him not to contact us, but this wasn't a normal situation where he just wanted to tell us for fun. It was because his son's life is at stake. Dad, my son, your grandson could die. Are there any other family members who could help save him? Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, that's great. Could you get them to save my son's life? Nah, I don't want to. Now you might think, so was Dad living a double life all this time or something? Nope, he's only met my dad twice before this. Once when he was in college and the second time for my dad to be tested to see if he was a match. Dad isn't on the birth certificate and wasn't involved in his life at all, so it's not as though my brother knew where to find us. And so that's where things were left off. Again, bit of a cliffhanger, isn't it? But now we get to the update, just under 2 years later. Do we get a happy ending? I want to thank everyone who posted kind and supportive comments towards me and my family. My mom divorced my dad. She could not get past the infidelity and didn't believe my dad that it was only a one-time indiscretion. She was devastated when she found out. She's doing better now, but it still hurts sometimes. They were married for 34 years, so it's been a big adjustment for her. Regarding my nephew, it turned out that while no one in my family is a match, my brothers, my uncle, and my cousins all got tested. My then girlfriend, now fiance, of my cousin was a match. She agreed to be a donor. It was a complete fluke because she isn't genetically related to my nephew, but she has given him a second chance and had no hesitation about agreeing to donate. Everything went as well as it could have, and my nephew is doing great. We have been getting to know my brother, his wife, and my nephew. My brother has only met or talked to my dad twice in his life, once when he was in university and once to tell my dad that my nephew needed a bone marrow donor. The total time for both meetings together was less than 30 minutes. My dad was never involved in his life and was against my brother contacting us. We don't care what my dad says though. My brother wasn't trying to get money or anything from us. It was just about trying to save a nephew. So thanks again for all the supportive comments. So, in a dark, twisted way, I'm kind of thankful that this dad became such a deadbeat, or at least displayed such a lack of actual respect for his son. Because if he did be a really good father to the brother, I'm sure he could have persuaded him to not bother contacting OP's family. Just trying to see the bright side on having a terrible childhood. Now, this story has an update that I don't know, gang. Can't tell if it's an ad or if it's just too strangely resolved. My wife is turning into an absolute hippie psycho person, and me and my son can't stand it anymore. Beginning back in November. So a bit of backstory. I am from Puerto Rico and my wife is from suburban Kansas City. I moved to New York City in 1984 and she moved here at 18 for college and fell in love with the city. We actually met at a bar and had a one-night stand, and she got pregnant. At first, we wanted her to get an abortion, but we kind of fell in love at first one-night stand, and got married when our son was 3 years old. 3 months old. We are very, very different people. I am from the South Bronx and grew up extremely rough. I got into fights, I've gotten stabbed, gotten shot at. It's not a great upbringing. I wasn't the worst kid, but my friends were truly bad people. But I mostly got out of that lifestyle by the time I met her. So basically, we've raised our son and have had our ups and downs, but we are both successful at our jobs and whatnot. But in the past year or two, her attitude towards certain things have changed. Here's just a list of what I'm talking about. She refuses to eat gluten. This should give you a staple of the stereotype she fits into now. She is now 100% vegan and gets extremely mad when we eat meat in the house. She does yoga 3 times a week and cries when we don't want to go with her. She suddenly doesn't like movies with violence or drugs or partying. She gets extremely protective of our son about this. She also doesn't let our son hang out with his friends sometimes because the friends are too rowdy and come from uncultured families. And she doesn't let our son bike around the neighborhood with his friends at all. She needs to constantly be with him when he is hanging out. She literally took his iPod and changed the music to what she considers good music. This consists of Justin Timberlake and Mumford & Sons, Macklemore, Taylor Swift type stuff mostly. Our son liked electronic dance music and metal a lot. This was one of the worst things she did, in my opinion. She also thinks that I am too masculine in the way I act and constantly tries to correct the way I act, saying I have toxic masculinity in me. She uses this near constantly when I tell her I don't like how she babies our son. She calls the cops on basically any crime she sees, including one time when we walked by a house party and she called the cops because underage drinking was happening and she wants to keep her community safe. At one time, she also called the cops because a few Spanish teens were playing soccer in the street and she just assumed they were up to no good. That made me insanely upset. Honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This has been her for the past 2 to 3 years, and we have gotten into near constant arguments about this. I tell her she is too sensitive about nearly everything, and then she goes off on rants and tries to show me all these weird articles about what I am doing is gaslighting her. She's also trying really, really hard to act young. Like she goes to indie shows in Williamsburg filled with 22-year-old hipsters and tries to chat people up to make friends. Then, when she gets rejected or something like that from those indie circles, she comes home and cries in my arms and is depressed for days. She wants so badly to be a part of that crowd. She seems to have anxiety and depression issues. I do honestly feel bad for her. She keeps up this insane persona. She describes herself as a modern-day hippie. She spends all her time checking out new cafes and brunch spots with her friends. Ah, yes, peak hippie behavior. Chasing consumerism. I know how this started. She got a job at this new office filled with young yuppies. Basically, right after that, she changed into this. I think to keep up with her coworkers, but it's clearly turned into something much more devastating and self-esteem damaging than that. I just want her to be herself, not this crazy person trying to perfect everything around her to fit her worldview. Interestingly enough, if you have ever seen Season 3, Episode 1 of Black Mirror, she reminds me insanely of the main character of that episode, but more willing to disrupt everything around her to fit what she wants, even if it inconveniences others. That's the main character from this episode, in case you needed a visual reminder. And in case you haven't seen the episode, it accurately depicts TikTokers, at least the ones whose only content is themselves. Note that this is all recent. She was never like this 4 years ago. She was just a regular working woman who liked to relax and hang out and didn't take much seriously like she does now. We used to get drunk at dive bars together. We used to party a bit even. It's all hit a bad point about a week ago when my son, who also has been in conflict with her nearly constantly, got into a major argument with her. The argument was over whether he can hang out with his friends who were outside, and she said no because there were too many of them. She thought it was bad to hang out in such large groups. Now, this is the type of stuff she thinks about. I know she really didn't want him out there because the kids were mostly black and Spanish, but he is half Puerto Rican. He got so mad he took dishes and began shattering them on the ground. Then he left and didn't come back for 5 hours while my wife hysterically cried and called the cops to find him. Since then, he is not allowed to leave the house, and my wife has cried nightly for losing our son. She has become extra horrible towards me and my son, as she thinks I am on his side simply because I tried to defend him and say she was overreacting. But every time I say she is overreacting, she has a breakdown and says I am just doing what men do to women. I mean, last I checked, calling people out on their schmidt is something everyone does to each other equally, so I don't even know what to do anymore. I know that this isn't her. I know that she has developed some serious mental problems in the past 2 to 3 years. I know this isn't normal for her. I don't want to divorce her, but I'm not sure if I can handle this any longer. She has broken down. She is in bed crying nearly all day. She will sometimes go off yelling at me that I am the epitome of toxic masculinity, and then an hour later be crying in my arms saying she loves me more than anything. Is this some type of personality disorder? Does she need therapy? What can I say to make her calm down? I was thinking about writing a heartfelt letter about the way she has been acting. That way she can interrupt me like she usually does with the screaming. Well, in this case, can't interrupt me. I don't want to argue. I just want to make my point and have her respond. But I don't want to seem as if I disapprove of her entire lifestyle and everything she has done. What the hell do I do? I feel so passive in this situation, and she goes nuts when she sees me acting completely normal while she is crying or yelling or whatnot, as if every time she is acting crazy, I have to act crazy too about whatever she is crazy about at the moment. What the hell do? I do not want a divorce. I want to help her. We both still very much love each other despite this madness. Oh boy, it's a big one, isn't it? Now, to highlight some good theories in the comments, one person brings up the idea that it's likely, with the pressure of the co-workers, the wife has fallen into a perfect modern woman trap. Kind of like the quarter-life crisis a lot of men get around, the age 28 to 32, feeling like they're not reaching their gender roles potential and peak masculinity or peak femininity, etc. And with the help of social media showing us all these people that are just so perfect in what they do, couldn't possibly be the power of just knowing how to edit your videos well and showing 20 minutes of their 24-hour day, where I guarantee they are mindlessly scrolling TikTok while pooping in the toilet too. Don't worry, we all do it. Overall suggesting wife needs therapy. Pretty simple. Now, apparently this does resonate with OP. He seems to be able to pick up on a lot of what the comment is putting down in terms of what things are being motivated by, etc. That, yeah, it's a very common thing. Again, not just among women, among guys too. We all have these moments in our lives where we suddenly reflect on everything we've been doing. It's kind of just like a fun little rite of passage that, hey, we are capable of self-reflection. And the fact you aren't satisfied with where you are in life right now is because you have gotten so comfortable with where you are that you're now bored and you essentially want to play a new video game. I mean, that's kind of cool to know that you've reached such enlightenment that you're like, you know what? Let's see what the next life of mine has in offer. Hence why so many people do a career change by the time they're 30. But anyway, here's the supposed goldmine answer. A comment says, let me share something with you as an ex-vegan. Her emotional distress could very well be due to a vitamin D and or B12 deficiency. I know, it sounds crazy, but that stuff is real and it makes you a depressed, weeping wacko. Vegans usually do not get enough vitamin D or B12 through their diet, and both should be supplemented. This is scientifically documented. Is she taking a B12 supplement? Then going on to say that their behavior in other areas might also be due to depression and just, again, that part of your life where you get really reflective on where you're going with yourself and what you're doing and not feeling satisfied by it, and therefore you don't really feel like you have an identity anymore because you're no longer happy with the identity you currently have. Not to mention suddenly getting very controlling on their son because she's realizing, oh, he doesn't actually need me anymore. anymore. He's proving that by being independent. Well, is he certain? What if he's wrong? He might get hurt or get into trouble in the long term. It'll be all my fault for not stopping him before he does this. Again, it sounds kind of psychotic, but also you kind of don't blame people for feeling this way about people they dearly love. So again, OP takes in on this information. But first, because this is kind of funny. So comments suggested an ultimatum of sorts of like, you need couples therapy or individual therapy, otherwise this is not going to work anymore. And would you look at that? He has. And apparently that's gaslighting.
My dearest love, I can't communicate to you properly how I feel about us. Can we see someone professional to work this problem out together?
How dare you try to make sure we understand each other?
Okay, so on to the updates 2 months later. So the wife had an absolute breakdown at both me and my son, and she basically ran away and got wasted at a bar, then came back and threatened to end herself with pills. I called the police, they came, and by the time they came, she was already just crying on the couch, and the cops left. Didn't really know what to do. My son was crying and everything. I told her she has got to go to a mental hospital or see a doctor as soon as possible, and she then got even more mad at me, and then she went upstairs and just started screaming like an insane person. She did end up going to the doctor, who diagnosed her with B12 deficiency at a severe level, just like you guys said. She has been taking pills, and I can't even describe what has changed in her. She went from an absolute downward spiral into madness and controlling everything to a just much more clear-minded, calm person. She sometimes feels weird about admitting just how wrong she was about certain things. And she said she never realized how blind she was to how horrible she was treating the people around her. She said her anxiety over things would sometimes spike through the roof, and she over-relied on blogs she read on the internet to help control her life. I am glad she has been able to admit these things. I honestly feel like some of it wasn't entirely B12 deficiency though, or at least she might be retracking a lot of the stuff she did and said which had nothing to do with the deficiency. Like her going vegan was a symptom of the original problem, not like veganism is bad, and that she was desperate to fit in with the young yuppie crowd. I'm not sure if she is purposely blaming all of her old weird problems on B12 deficiency, but that weird stuff started before she went vegan, so I think there was still some insecurity problems there. I'm just glad she has spent the last 2 weeks realizing how problematic she has been. She said she was like in a trance, where she thought the entire world was against her, and the things she read on the internet confirmed that there was some global conspiracy, as she described it, to make her be a dependent person or some stuff like that. I am just so glad she is back. So glad. So yeah, gonna go take my multivitamin now. Now it seems like a happy ending, but as this comment points out too, has this really resolved everything? What about the racism? Pretty sure that's not a symptom you get from being B12 deficient. Because if that was the case, as someone who lives in the land of Vegemite, we, Australia's history would not at all be what it is. Just saying, folks. See, the first thing I did was Google vegetarian sources of B12. I drink a giant glass of milk every day and eat cheese like it's going out of style. So my problems are entirely of my own making. Good to know. My family wants me to hide my heterochromia for my sister's wedding. I'm 21 male, my sister 32 is getting married, and they want me to sing at her wedding, but also wear contacts to hide my heterochromia? I have 2 different colored eyes. I'm Asian, and my family thinks my heterochromia will never be socially accepted or always looked down upon, and may even be perceived as some kind of illness or a disability, and they don't want the new in-laws to perceive any flaws about us and our family. I live abroad, so I don't see my family often, but every time I visit, I get urged to go out in public, at events, to see family wearing contacts. Now, spring every year, when this wedding is, we have really bad yellow dust, and wearing the contacts is going to be a pain. I have good vision, so contacts are not part of my life at all, except to hide my colored eye. My mom has always been image-oriented, grooming my sister and I our whole lives and being hypercritical about our looks. My only flaw is my eye condition. My sister's flaw was her nose, and my mom bullied her into surgery for a small bump no one would have said anything about. So should I suck it up and wear the contacts for that day? Maybe I'm picking the wrong time to retaliate. Like, when is the right time? Now, there is a long edit by the OP that can really be summarized pretty quickly though. Notably that living abroad, they find themselves getting a lot more compliments in the US and Europe compared to their home, where they're kind of encouraged to keep it all hidden. Hell, even being scouted for modeling. Like, damn, this person is clearly peak anime looking person, but like in the hot way. Also, while it is popular in his home country for people to try and enhance their eye color and stuff, but they still like to keep it natural looking. And also, while he's learnt now and knows now that it's kind of demeaning to hide his eyes, it's something he's kind of gotten used to at this point. So he also doesn't like getting too much attention on him, so in a way, he's probably feeling more encouraged to comply just so he doesn't get the attention for it. Strangely enough though, the times he has gone to his home country and not worn contacts, sex. While older generations found it a bit weird, younger generations all seem to have loved it, as well as being rather aware of what it is in the first place. So it's really starting to seem like this is a case where it's just the mum being very insane and hyperfixated on things that ultimately don't matter, or if anything, are more detrimental to this guy's beauty and overall desirability. He goes on here explaining that his mother seems to think that it will hold him back from success, jobs, opportunities, etc. in the country that she grew up in. You know, the country he's no longer in or is working in. Yeah. Now, as someone here comments a reciprocated experience of their critical mother about how they looked and what they did, they mentioned into looking to what the deeper thoughts of the mother had behind her behavior. As it turns out for them, their mother hated or resented their white dad and then would take it out on the kids. It didn't help that their own mother actually got criticism for marrying a white man and then getting divorced also didn't help at all to her image. But I feel that's a classic example of, okay, that's your problem, mummy. You can go to therapy for that. Not project your expectations onto me to that degree. But yeah, Opie thinks he's in the same sort of boat. That she just wants me to have no problems, and so she never allowed me to embrace this trait, which stood out too much. And then, the older I got, I began to gain positive attention, and that only made her want me to hide my eye condition even more because she felt my eyes would be the limiter and take away from my ability to be successful. Now, I think back home, this might have been true in some ways, but I live abroad and this is not an issue. She doesn't get it. When I go back home to visit, we clash, ultimately ending things by saying that he thinks he will still wear the contacts just to be civil and out of respect for the sister, mainly just to not create any drama at the wedding between family. But notably, doing this on the condition that he's not going to be wearing contacts on visits moving forward. Because as people asked how the sister feels about all this, Opie did talk to her about it, and she seems to be stressed and pressured in her own right with the whole wedding thing. I mean, it doesn't help that their dad passed away at the end of last year, so oh boy. And yeah, ultimately asking Opie if he could actually please wear them just to avoid issues of adding more stress to her plate. So okay, just a month later we get the final update. So I had a long conversation with my sister. We had to do it over FaceTime because I was still abroad, but in a way it was better. She understands and was genuinely feeling bad about having to request this from me, but we both decided it's not the time to defy the family. I put my personal frustration aside, and after making the first post, I began to feel that I was being selfish. I think most people didn't want me to make the decision I did. I'm sorry. My sister was prepared to let me participate in her wedding without any contacts, but I decided to wear them because it's her wedding day. I wore contacts. The yellow dust was yellow dusting, but most of the wedding was indoors, so it was tolerable. Now, I didn't do the malicious compliance, guys, so no Halloween demon contact lenses. The optometrists and eye surgeons on the original post convinced me it's not worth the risk. I already hate putting in contacts. Now, after the wedding, I took the contacts out. Mum wasn't happy, and I haven't been wearing them here during my visit. After the first few encounters about it with family and relatives, it's mostly okay with me now. It's a little bit exhausting having the same conversations and hearing the same responses. I think I might need therapy or something for some of those feelings I have, and issues with my mom that have been created now because of my choice. But thanks for helping me get over the hardest part. And now for a story with the audacity of an update. A customer bounced a $400 check to my small business and then told me to suck his duck when I called him about it. I can't afford small claims. Please offer advice. I'm desperate. As the title says, a real jerk came into my flower store. He rudely ordered 12 custom flower bowls be made for him. I made him his order and he picked it up. At the time of pickup, he was very hesitant to write me the check. He wanted to order more and then come back with one big check. I said, no, check now, please. He signed his name and tossed it to me. I had to write in the dollar amount, but now the check is bouncing. I have been by his bank every day for 2 weeks to attempt a cashier check, but he doesn't have the funds in the account. I think he uses this checkbook for this exact reason. The check was number 003 from the book. Does anyone have any advice? I'm crying myself to sleep thinking about this. I can't afford opening a court case. My current ideas are as follows. Putting David Ekrem writes bad checks on my road sign next to a major road in town. Maybe calling his employer. Anything else that is legal. I'm about to drive the neighborhood and look for my flowers. Also, through Google research, I see he was awarded $20,000 in PPP loans 2 years ago. Can I do anything with that? Please help me get this man. I just want to grow my flowers. So an absolute scumlord. But an acute quick update here. The police just left the greenhouse. They collected the paperwork I have for the whole mess. When the officer looked at the name of the guy, he said, "Oh, no, please don't drop the charges on this one. I want to see it go through. And then he sat in his squad car for a few minutes and made a bunch of phone calls. That's a good sign. So what happens 2 days later? Well, he has paid in full. And the way he behaves about it. Oh boy. Thank you everyone who encouraged me to fight for my money. I filed a police report. The cop came out to my store, and when I handed him the information I had on the guy, he chuckled and said, "Oh, this guy. If you want to open report, that's fine and he deserves it. But he always comes running when we call him." And sure enough, he showed up an hour after the police had left him a message. He said I had no right involving the police, and it was so far out of line that I needed to appease him somehow with a discount on more flowers. He then demanded I call the officer while he was there so he could see me drop the report. I told him our business is done and stood my ground. It was great. He left, and it honestly felt like it was the first time he hadn't gotten his way in a long time. You know, honestly, based on the police officer's reaction to the name of the person you're reporting, I feel like he hasn't gotten away with this a lot. And now here's something that's interesting. So people are suggesting that you should absolutely put his picture on the register with a sign that says, "Refuse service to this person, bad checks, theft, etc." Face it where everyone can see it at the register, include his name, and it won't be illegal. So that's fun to know. To which the OP replied, "I told the cop I'd be planning to put David writes bad checks on my street sign, with his last name included." The cop laughed and said even after David pays, I should still put that on my sign because it's still true. Made me feel good. Now, I don't know if he's saying that it's legal and you're okay to do it, but I mean, he's not discouraging you. So, because if someone points out, it's true. He has done this, so therefore it's not defamation because oh man. See, this is why you don't be an a-hole, folks. So that way when people say you're an a-hole, there's actually no evidence to prove that it's true. Anyway, folks, I think we'll end things there. Thank you as always for watching. Love your face, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.